when I came in on the bow, I was surprised to see it. It looked just as I had left it. I had heard so much about the change that was taking place on the Titanic, and yet here we are clearing the rail and moving along the deck, and I said, I've been here before. This is exactly the way I remember it. But it wasn't until we cleared this first hatch and came up to the base of the mast that I could see right there where the submarines had landed, the damage that had been caused. So the change I saw right off the top was not Mother Nature. It was human-induced. Another big disappointment was the loss of the crow's nest. I remember when there was a crow's nest there. Again, nothing Mother Nature did. It was, again, human-induced. But the beauty of these new cameras, you can just zoom in and read the instructions on the winches, and this is where we put our plaque. And it had been removed, and then they put it back on the capstan, and then it's back there now. Well, you know, it's hard to know what change is natural and what was caused by human intervention. Like that black smudge you saw, that was probably an impact. You certainly know that this mast has been altered. And was that falling on its own, or did the submarine sit down on the mast while it tried to pull off the running light just above it? These lifeboat davits are just sort of haunting. Empty, no lifeboat. Sort of making you think how few lifeboats were there. Compare it to the image you took 20 years ago, and it's a little change, but certainly not that much. And for me, the boat deck where you look into the windows is like a haunted house. So much of the ship is like a haunted house, sort of spooky. Wondering who walked along that promenade, who looked out of those portholes. It's like a face looking back at me. First time I saw the Titanic, I saw portholes, and I thought of them as the people who died looking out their windows. You get this eerie lighting, and it's pitch dark, and so you're the source of the light, and here's the vehicle just over the other side, backlighting. So much of it is just a wreckage, particularly in the stern area. I mean, there's just, you can get so disoriented, and you see little vignettes of logic in the stern area, but then there's so much of it that's just total chaos. It's like a terrorist blew up the ship. Another mast, this is the stern mast. But look at that, it's just ironically destroyed by the implosion. Ironically, the stern wasn't damaged by the iceberg, which doomed it to implosion. It just gives you a sense of how immensely powerful pressure is, that it could take such a phenomenally built ship and blow it up. I wish that was my plaque instead of someone else's. That's where I put mine, and then someone removed it. Put another one there. Cranes laying out on the debris field. You got on the debris field, and it's like going to a supermarket in many ways. At least that's the way the salvagers looked at it, as a big supermarket. One of those tops of one of the reciprocating engines. You don't really get a sense of how big this is until you introduce an object that gives you scale, but that is one gigantic feature there, right? I should say Titanic feature. Again, out into the debris area. Helter-skelter, here and there, what rained down from above. Probably piece of the hull plating where the ship broke in half. Looks like a jet turbine, like from a jet engine. You never know when you go across the debris field what you're going to come across. These things pop into view. I don't think people realize how small the deep sea is when you view it with your human eyes. It's just an area smaller than your house. Hercules did such a wonderful job of taking us on a magical tour and not breaking anything. I see those cases and cases of wine and champagne. This is a wash basin. It looks like a little critter growing inside of it. Been taken over by the sea. You can see the sedimentation rate by looking at the plates. It tells you that there really is very little sediment falling in this area. We're so far out to sea. And when you look at something like this, your eyes just go all over the place. There's a wine bottle, a chamber pot, a champagne bottle, a piece of flooring, a flask. I love the wine bottles because they have their corks pushed inside. Again, the force of pressure on the way down. Looks like a tornado hit a house. Just scattered it all over the place. Look at that, a chamber pot. Amazing, isn't it? The park bench and all that's left. The wood's been eaten by the wood borers. There's a wash basin upside down. Porcelain just, if I were ever to be made out of anything, it would be porcelain. You can last forever in the deep sea. Here you see the case as if it was still stacked. These are champagne bottles and stacking of dishes. Like they have some silver or copper in them to turn green. People expect when they see a cup to see Titanic, but it always says White Star Line. It's amazing. I was surprised that there was so much still there after the salvagers had been roaming this area, but I guess they just wanted to pick up what they thought was the most valuable. A ventilator. One of the boilers. Probably the first thing we ever saw that told us we had found the Titanic was when we towed the vehicle over a boiler. Might have been that one. We are coming up on the port side, just forward of the bridge. You can see the way it's been pulled up, probably by just the sheer force of the current, just peeled back the superstructure. Coming up on the stern. One of the first images we got of the Titanic was going over the stern, and we had no idea what we were going over. The bow section. My favorite part of the ship is the bow section. Just dropping over the side. You can see there's no rust down there. It's amazing. The hull really hasn't got as much rust on it, particularly down where the anti-fouling paint was. That's why I want to clean the Titanic and paint it. I really do. I think it would prolong its life. I think the most powerful image here, young shoes, maybe from a girl next to an older parent, a mirror, a comb. All throughout the debris field are the tombstones of the people who died, their shoes. Shoes after shoes after shoes. Mother Nature removes the body and the ocean dissolves the bones, but the leather shoes are there all scattered throughout the debris field, constantly reminding you that this was a human tragedy, not just a big ship. My favorite part of the ship, the bow. She's still proud, still trying to get to New York in many ways.